Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Seer session. For those of you that are new to today's session, on the Seer 365 sessions, what we want to do is highlight some of the ISVs and the partners that we work with in our network, as well as discuss some of the challenges that face both Microsoft partners and end customers in the market today. Today, I am delighted to be joined by Rick from 2Controlware. And what we're going to do on today's call is have a bit of a run through what 2Controlware do, and then go into a bit of a more varied discussion on working within the industry. So, Rick, tell us a little bit about 2Controlware.
Thanks a lot. So thanks for the introduction, Rufus. My name is Rick, obviously, and I'll show you around a little bit with 2Controlware and what we do. So first up, some PowerPoint slides just to give a brief overview of how we help customers and partners, and from there we'll have an interesting talk about what that means. So if you look at 2Controlware, basically what we want to solve for our customers are three things. So first of all, especially for the ones that have been around longer, and a lot of the partners will recognize this, that you have a chaotic right structure because things change over time. People change roles, new people join, etc. So that's something that you want to solve. So if it's looking like this, it's not really managed, as we would say. And for some companies that would work perfectly, but for most you would rather align it with your organizational chart. So if you look at your Business Central implementation, you want to make sure that the rights people have are aligned with the jobs that you hired them to do in the system, and not that they can go all over the place. The second thing you would want to do is you want to be able to control that and to report on the setup that you have. So in this case, you see a breach and segregation duties where Mary it can do both payments, but she could also change vendor bank accounts. And of course, we all trust Mary. However, this enables her to, well, let's say, pay for her house on the Bahamas or do some fraudulent transactions if she wanted to. So any accountant or auditor will say, well, that's a breach in your segregation duties. You should have done that differently. And this is a major one, but there's a lot of smaller ones as well that you can think of. So you want to be able to report on that. And the solution we built for that is our authorization box. And that consists of two parts, so the blue boxes. One is on the management side, so you want to be able to take permissions as Microsoft thought of them in Business Central, and assign them through an organizational chart and maintain them just the rules and what people can do, and then assign them to users. But also to have a nice workflow in place so that you can easily assign roles, or when there's a new person joining, that you can approve something or have multiple approvers. So a new warehouse employee, of course, you would want someone to process that fast because they're coming in today, they have to go to work straight away. A new CFO, likely you will want to have more people looking at if you want to approve the rights for the CFO in Business Central. And second thing, like I said, you want to be able to monitor. So that's the reporting side of things. That has a lot of views onto how permissions are set up in Business Central, so that you can present this to people who need to see this, or if you just want to know yourself that the rights in your system are set correctly, then this tool will help you. For the larger implementations, we also have two additional modules there on user templating, where everything that you need to do for setting up a new user can be put in a template. So every time a new person joins, you can just roll out the template, which makes it easier for IT management to do that. And if you have a more decentralized organization where internal control is further away, you can also have the system send out reports, so that monitoring report on breaches, segregation duties, on critical tasks will be sent to someone whenever something occurs or on a regular basis. So that's the side of authorization management and reporting. The next thing that's a little bit lagging in Business Central is the refinement of permissions. So typically when you get started, let's take Rufus and myself. If we both manage items, but I do this from a marketing perspective and he does this from a purchase perspective, we want to see the item card, but there's different fields that we both need to work on. So then you would want to say, well, Rufus can take care of this part and Rick can take care of that part. Standard BC doesn't really have the tooling for that, and that's why we said we need some refinement there. And there's two modules we use for that, and they all tie into how Microsoft built the permissions. So Microsoft gave us permission sets which grant access to objects, an object being an item card, customer card, vendor, etc., etc. And then we go a level deeper with field security, and that's two sides. So first is the field security, like I just explained. So Rufus can change the first 10 fields and Rick can change the other ones. They can see everything, but they cannot change everything. But next up will be filtering. And let's take a fashion company, for example. A fashion company typically has a past collection that might just be seen by logistics, but you don't want salespeople to be working on that. The current collection, that's where sales needs to put their energy on. And the future collection, which is something that product development will be working on. So with the filtering, you can say we can all see the items. However, sales can only see the current collection, R&D can see the future collection, etc., etc. So that way you can filter down what people can work on or can see even more. So that's on the field security side of things. But then there's the other thing, that's data. And especially in this AI age, you want to make sure that the data you put into a system is actually correct. And everybody that's worked in an IT environment knows that users tend to make mistakes, forget mandatory fields and things like that. PC doesn't really come up with a solution for that, so we built our field validation. And what that does is it can be triggered either on safe or some other things. So for example, if you want to unblock a customer, so you can put in a new customer, you can save it, no problem. The moment you want to release it for use in the process, that's when the validation kicks in and checks mandatory fields, but it could also check against a regular expression. A regular expression being, is it an email address? Is it a valid VAT number, an IBAN, etc., etc. So those things you can put in as well. And then of course you can check if all the default dimensions have been filled, which kind of important when you're working in a system like this. So that's what the compliance apps do. If you then wrap it all together, you need Microsoft Dynamics. We are a Dynamics-focused ISV company, so companies without it, sorry, can't help you. We have our authorization box for the management and the report part. We have one app I didn't talk about, but that's for free. It's the permissions recorder, so you can try it tonight. That helps you to record permission sets in an easier way than the standard comes. Just play with it, won't go into detail today. And then there's the field security, field validation bit that I just explained a minute ago. Why do we do this then? If you're with the customer on IT management side, we provide more efficiency, more levels of security without customizations, and all in all to make sure that you have a happy internal customer as an IT manager. On the control side, that you can rely on the information, so that's where the field validations come in, that you can report on your segregation duties, and that you're always aware of who can do what in your systems. So that was what I wanted to show you and tell you about our software suite. Didn't want to make it a Death by PowerPoint session today, so hope it was clear for you.
No, thank you, Rick. That was a really nice, quite quick overview in terms of some of the solutions that you have at 2Controlware. You mentioned segregation of duties a couple of times during that presentation. Yeah. For a layman like me, what is segregation of duties? Why is it important within a system?
Well, there's two ways to think about that. So let's first start with me as a customer having an ERP implementation. I would want to make sure that I prevent users from doing fraudulent actions. Not that I have the feeling that they have bad intentions, but you just want to make sure that the system prevents them from doing so. So the example I had where someone can change a vendor bank account number and approve payments, well, that's the obvious one, but there's more. Like if you want to validate stock, you don't want the people that approve that to be the same that do the calculation, so that they you want to separate those jobs. And that's the internal side. Then there's the accounting and the IT audit side of things. They want to enforce it. They have a list of things, of breaches that they would recognize, and they will ask you. So the moment you get an IT audit, they will ask you those things, and it's really hard to report on that from Standard Business Central. So like the most standard ones we have already available in our system, but there will be branch specific ones. So We have, for example, a sauce company, and they make private label sauces for large retail chains. For
Okay.
them, recipe management obviously is a critical task, but people that can do recipe management and create production orders, that's a breach. You wanna separate those. So that's where segregation duties come in. And then a lot of people, when you're smaller, don't worry too much about it, just for your internal that you want to prevent fraud. When it grows bigger and accountants and IT auditors come in, well, that's when they actually demand you to have that in place and to report on that.
Okay, so I can definitely see like the need from an audit perspective, especially with some of the larger companies. What kind of companies would you say partners should be on the lookout for, where they should maybe be having conversations with them about controlware solutions?
It differs from basically the two things. So for the apps, anyone that has a question where that functionality kicks in, well, just go right ahead. Our pricing is also tier pricing, so that will be smaller for small customers than for larger. For the authorization box, I have a hard time making a business case for a company smaller than 50 users. If you're smaller than that, you will know. I mean, that security and setting that up will be easy. You know the people. And the only one customers we have that are smaller, they're typically a little bit more complex or highly regulated industries. So in the US, we have a few that provide to defense or to the government. In Europe, you see pharmaceuticals, chemical companies that have a lot of regulations. So for them, it's really important to report on that. Other than that, I wouldn't see anyone below 50 users. When you go over managing users, setting it up, it becomes more and more vague, especially if you go over 100 users. It's just a lot of work, and we make that work easier. So if you don't believe in all the rest, and then only that part will make the life of a sysadmin a lot easier.
Excellent. And when you're working with partners, could you speak a little bit more about what that looks like? Do you support the implementation? Yeah. What does the implementation look like?
Yeah, we are always partner led, so that means that either a lead comes from a partner, or if not, then we involve the partner. Sometimes partner says no, we help the customer direct, but our preference is to work with the partner on it. We can do everything, so we can take care of the whole implementation and just sync that with your project manager. And a lot of cases, partners want us to do that because permissions and everything, it's a burden in a project. Typically, it's a last minute thing because you can only do this once you're almost there. So that's when they ask us. However, we do also have partners that are trained to do our implementation. And the implementation is quite small. So if you take the apps, that's half a day training and then you're done. And you could get some support on implementation, but most of the time customers do it themselves. If you look at the authorization box, that's 2 days training. So one on the management side, one on the monitoring side. And implementation really depends on how advanced the customer is themselves. So you have a customer that understands the principles in Business Central. After the training, they will be capable of doing it themselves. We do advise to give some guidance, and that can be either the partner that knows a little bit about our solution, or it can be us to do that. We have only one project that went over 20 days. That was a 9 database, over 800 general ledgers company. So,
wow. Okay. Yeah. I imagine that was quite a bit of effort to untangle.
Exactly. And then also central management kicks in, because from a central place, you want to manage all that, but you don't know all the locations and everything because you cannot oversee that. So really, they use our solution to push down to the company.
Excellent. And do you, I mean, you mentioned there's the permissions tracker, that's sort of a free application. Do you support kind of that process optimization piece as well?
Partly, yeah. So it depends on the type of customer. So we support when they ask us to help set up like the permissions, then we can support that. And typically what we then do is we offer 2 ways of doing it. It's an exclude project where we say, well, we'll just give everybody in your company everything, and we just take away a few things that we think not everybody should have. Or we do it the other way around, then we do an include project, and then we'll sit with the customer, go through their process, and all design a setup. And then it's about if we record the permission sets, or if the customer does it, or the partner. That depends on who has the time, who's willing to invest it, and but that's how we support the process. And to be honest, once a customer's live, we typically don't have that much work. It just works, and the customer's trained so they can use it themselves. So the work we get is a new person or a migration. So we now see a lot of people going from BC on-prem to BC cloud. Well, then they want someone to watch and to help out, but that's about it.
Awesome. One other piece around the kind of the role management. The field validation that you mentioned.
Yeah, don't worry.
How flexible is the field validation? Because obviously every business has their slightly own way of doing things. Different countries have different ways of putting dates, all of that good stuff. How does the solution tackle that?
Yeah, there's like so the easy way to explain this is, you go to a customer card and you want to check that credit limit's not empty, phone number has this amount of digits, etc., etc. That's quite straightforward. And then the next step would be to make the value of one field depending on the other. So if you say, well, this is a UK one, you want to have pounds, but you also want to have a certain date format, like you said, or you want to have different units of measure. So you want to be able to toggle that. So then you say, well, if you put in UK here, that means different rules will apply to these fields. So yeah, you could set that up. We'll not be demoing this right now because it will be a really long webinar, but yeah, we can show this. And we have a lot of others as well. So especially in regulated industries, you see that if you have an item that has a certain amount of alcohol, for example, you would need some other documents or some other data filled out. So then those fields will interact, and that makes sure that at the end in your process, you don't miss data.
Excellent. Just one more thing. I saw that you were releasing some new functionality around sort of integration with Microsoft Copilot. How's that going, and what other sort of focuses do you have for the near future?
Yeah, well, Copilot, of course, it's an interesting beast, so to speak. So there's a lot of ways to it, and then so we use it in our development teams and everywhere. The biggest things we released to date were like more user focused. So a user, especially on field validation, field security, if you want to set that up, it starts typically with a question you have. I want to limit Rufus from seeing certain data or from changing certain data. You can now just ask Copilot to do that. It will pop up our screens, fill it all out, and then say, do you want to test drive it? Yeah, I want to test it, and then you do test, and then you're good to go. So that's how we use Copilot currently for the setup part of things. As we use it more and more on our own day-to-day work and in our own BC implementation, because we also run on BC, we see more and more use cases. But for Copilot, it currently will be more aimed at the setup side of our software than the actual use, because as a user, you would just get an error message saying, well, sorry, you're not allowed to do this, or you should change this, or you should fill out that field. And then there's not that much Copilot can do for you at that moment. Yeah. So that's there on authorization box. We're still seeing how we can integrate it. So there's some tests going on. Because of Copilot, we want to pull the reporting that we currently have in our own solution towards Power BI, because that opens up the complete box of tools that Microsoft has available. So that's something that's currently being tested.
Wonderful. No, good to hear. So to summarize, I think to Controlware, you've got some really clever solutions around helping with that admin and roles and permissions elements of Microsoft software. It especially useful where there are audit compliance requirements, where there are large organizations, or where I suppose there's just sort of change over time, right? Roles need new abilities, and you need to do that in a controlled manner. Anything else you want to mention today, Rick, or to kind of summarize from your side?
Yeah, I think the big thing from our side is so if you're an end customer, looking to be more security, more in control, talk to us. If you're a partner that's struggling in permission projects, especially in the reporting on permissions, then talk to us. I think that we can help you out big time. And Also, just check out the apps for everyone. They're for free. So if you're on a cloud version, go to App Stores, put them on your test environment, and test drive them, see what it does, see how it works. It's all documented. We'll share the links later on. So you can just go on and play with it.
Excellent, absolutely. If you do want to get in touch with Rick or any of the team at 2Controlware, please do feel free to reach out via email or via LinkedIn. I believe both of them are linked, especially if you're watching this on LinkedIn at the moment. Do feel free to get in contact with myself at Seer 365. And if you are one of our partners and you're going to any of our upcoming events, I think you'll see Rick there as well, right?
Definitely. Yeah, of course.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for your time today, Rick. Really appreciate it, as always. And yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.